right, Michelle, you're good to go.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April 13th, 2023 Connecticut Paid Leave Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 9:03. Stephanie, would you please take attendance?
Of course, good morning. Ava Brimita Zimmerman.
Present.
Issa Canada. Issa has not yet joined us. Adrian Cochran. Looks like Adrian has not joined us yet. Britt Marie Cole Johnson.
Present.
Andrea Comer.
Present. Good morning.
Michelle Gilman.
Present.
Sheila Hummel.
Present.
Al Luciano. Sal has not yet joined us. Ellen McKitterick. Ellen has not joined us yet. Fran will not be joining us today. Sean Scott.
Here.
Mike Soltis.
Here.
Molly Weston Williamson.
Present.
Holly Williams will not be joining us today, and Justin Zartman.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Excellent.
Good morning. Sorry to interrupt. This is Erica Foster. I'm an attorney with the Connecticut Department of Labor. Ellen couldn't make it today, so I'm taking her place.
Hey, Erica, I'm just, as a note, could you just put yourself on camera just for a second? So whenever you talk, we need to have you on camera.
My camera is on, but it's not showing up, so I'm having some technical difficulty. I apologize.
If you have the laptop, usually there's that little slide at the top. But I do actually know Erica, so Commissioner, if you're okay with my representation that I recognize her voice, we can move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Excuse me. I apologize in advance for my voice today. Good morning again. I would like to thank the members of the public for joining us this morning. Through the course of the morning, we may also have some legislative members joining us as well. I want to acknowledge them as they may come in and out of this meeting. May I have a motion to approve the March 9th meeting minutes, which were distributed last week?
So moved. Scott.
Seconded, Mike.
Are there any corrections or further discussion? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Michael, would you please provide us with the update on proposed revisions to the consolidated policies?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. This is possibly a brief update regarding those revisions. As you may recall, in the February board meeting, the board had voted to post the revisions for public notice and comment. These were changes to the policies related to things like typos, clarity and consistency, removing things that were no longer necessary. For example, there was a checklist document as part of the claims process that we no longer use, so we've taken that language out. There was a couple items about specific events. So, if a claimant were to pass away, when does the benefit terminate? And then finally, the last category was sort of things related to the earnings. When do we count earnings? When do we not? In particular, around employees who were not participating at the time that they earned the money, but then later are participating. For example, the municipalities that can decide to participate via collective bargaining agreement. So just rules around those sort of things, not brand new policies, meant entirely to be cleanup of our existing consolidated policies. So that notice and comment period ended on March 24th, and we did receive several requests from the public to receive a copy of those changes, but we did not receive any comments or questions from the public. So therefore, as a result, we did not have any recommended changes from the same language that you saw back in February. So our hope is that the board would officially adopt the policy revisions today. I'm happy to take any questions or provide more details about the specific changes, but I'll leave it up to the board.
Are there any questions from the members of the board on Michael's presentation and the policies? If not, I'll take a motion to adopt the proposed revisions to the consolidated policies.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Michael. We will move to item number 5. Michael, you're going to provide us as well with a private plan audit update. Thank you.
Thanks again. Another brief update. Last month, the board had voted to adopt our private plan audit guide. So now we have a process for auditing our private plan employers, and we can actually start the process. So we have identified 3 employers that we intend to audit beginning in May. The 3 employers, one employer will audit their application process. The second one will audit their contributions that they're withholding from employees' paychecks. And then a third audit will be involved the claims process for that third employer. We just notified the employers yesterday afternoon. And so we're going to attempt to set up the first kickoff meeting of that audit first week of May. These employers were selected mostly at random. I say mostly because we did put some rules around what the sample would be when we chose those random employers. For example, we didn't want to have the application audit occur for a private plan that was voted on and approved back in Q1 of 2021. Part of the audit involves employees responding to questions about, did they vote on the private plan? Did they receive documentation that they needed? And it didn't make sense to us to have those employees have to recall what happened over 2 years ago and what documents they received, not to mention the turnover that may occur with employers. So we just didn't feel like that would be the best outcome and we'd get the best responses. So we did put some rules, and we wanted to have the application audit be a fairly recent private plan application. And similarly, we put some rules around, we didn't want to have too many, or the same carrier or TPA be forced to participate in multiple audits at the same time, at least for this go around. We want to make sure we're not being disruptive to their business, and if they do want to participate in the audit process. So those parameters are just what we set for this first series of audits. We're not locking them in. It just felt like a reasonable, accommodation to make to them. And we'll adjust as we need and as we learn. In addition, not all audits will be random. We may use these audits in response to a complaint that we receive from an employee of a private plan. Under that case, obviously, these rules would not apply to those specific audits that are targeted as a response to a complaint. Finally, we're going to remain humble throughout this process. We did have one test run with an actual employer prior to developing the full audit process and the audit guide. We do expect to continue to learn as we go through the audits, both around the best ways to audit, the things we want to emphasize as part of the audits, and also the amount of time it's going to take to perform an audit. We want to better understand our capacity and the work effort for audits going forward. So getting a sense of the reasonable amount of audits that we can perform at any given time is really a lesson where we know we're going to learn as we go through this process. So ultimately, this update was simply to make the board aware of the progress that we're making. And we'll be happy to share more as we continue along in the process. But in the meantime, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for Michael? Great. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate the update on the audit. Next, moving on, Madeline, can you please provide us with the legislative report?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Stephanie, could I please have screen sharing capabilities so I can pull up Maddie's slides?
Okay,
Thank you.
you all set?
Yes, thank you.
You can see your screen, Jeff.
Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Maddie Granado. I joined the team as the Government and Community Relations Manager a little over a month ago. So I'm just going to provide a really quick update on where we are in the legislative session and what we've been working on so far this year. Next slide. So right now there are a little less than 2 months left in the legislative session. It ends on June 7th. We are tracking several bills that relate to paid leave or could potentially impact our work in some way. But today I'll just highlight two that we are closely monitoring. The first is Senate Bill 1179, which makes a few clarifications to our current law. Senate Bill 1179 first defines municipality for both Connecticut paid leave and FMLA. Second, it creates a procedure to enable tribes to participate in Connecticut paid leave. And third, it clarifies the provision in the law regarding employer-provided benefits such as short-term disability and its interaction with Connecticut paid leave. Aaron testified to the Labor Committee in support of Senate Bill 1179 on March 9th. The bill was JFS'd by the Labor Committee on March 23rd. JFS means joint favorable substitute, or that the committee voted to essentially move forward an amended version of the bill. Next slide. We are also closely monitoring Senate Bill 1223, an act concerning the State Contracting Standards Board, which expands the power and authority of the State Contracting Standards Board, and among several other provisions, gives the board pre-approval authority over any proposed contracts that it deems to be a privatization contract. Similar legislation has been introduced in years past. Aaron testified in opposition to the bill on March 20th, and it was JFS'd by the Government Administrations and Elections, or GAE Committee, on March 24th. Next slide. We are also continuing our outreach to the legislature to really ensure that they're aware of Connecticut paid leave and that we are available to meet with them directly to answer any questions or really serve as a resource to them and their constituents. Aaron participated in a Facebook Live conversation with State Senator Martha Marks, who represents the New London area, on March 15th. It was a really great discussion. It covered a lot of the basics of the program and also answered questions from viewers. We also continue to distribute a monthly newsletter to the legislature. The most recent newsletter was sent on March 28th. It included an introduction to me and my contact information, as well as paid leave resources and ways to connect with us. You can see some screenshots here on the slide from the February newsletter, which also introduced Aaron. And we had really great open rates from both months of newsletters, which means people are really interested and are reading our information, which is great. We also provided an updated slide deck to the governor's office and the appropriations committee's chairs about the status of claims, contributions, and the authority's outreach and education efforts. We have a few upcoming events and things that are in the works. Tomorrow, Aaron will be presenting to the Progressive Caucus of the legislature, just again, providing an update on where we are. We were also invited to participate in a virtual panel discussion with the Northeast Region Women's Bureau of the Federal Department of Labor, tentatively the last week of April, to really highlight paid leave and how important it is during Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is the month of April. So we're really excited to be joined by some community partners in the Women's Bureau for what will be a great conversation on that. Aaron will also be a panelist and will be tabling at the WBDC's Women-Owned Business Day at the LOB or the Legislative Office Building on April 26th. We're also in the process of updating our legislator toolkit, which is a resource for legislators and their staff to really learn more and understand paid leave and educate their constituents. Lastly, I will just highlight too, in about an hour or so, Aaron will participate in a roundtable with Senator Murphy, highlighting the importance of paid leave to working caregivers. So we're really excited about that as well. And I will open for questions and before I turn it to Jess. Andrea.
Patty, good to see you. And
you too.
Thanks for this presentation. Just a quick question about the Contracting Standards Board draft legislation. Given that it was JF, do we have any sort of further action steps around engaging legislators to let them know our issues with the bill?
Yes, so we will be, I think, meeting with some legislators to just kind of walk them through how the bill will impact our work and what our concerns are. So those are our next steps on that.
Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question to that? how significant would be the impact on our authority if that bill were to pass?
It's pretty significant. The Contract Standards Board has extraordinary powers with regard to traditional state agencies that they've never exercised, in part because they haven't had staff. They now have staff. And so, sort of the functional limitation has gone away. And so trying to extend those powers over to quasi-public agencies, which are built to be flexible and nimble and behave a little bit more like a business than a traditional state agency, is a significant concern. The biggest concern I have is that they have the ability to deem any contract for services to potentially be a privatization contract. If they consider it to potentially be a privatization contract, they could bring us in and force us to justify why we need the services and go through this whole pre-contracting process before we could even issue an RFP or any sort of competitive bidding to justify why we want to have it be a contract as opposed to bringing it in-house and hiring staff to do the work. The way the statute is written, that pre-approval process can take several months. And there are sort of several opportunities for others to be involved, including a statutory right for any union to challenge the board's decision to allow the agency to move forward with it in court. So the risks of delay, the risks of just interference, and frankly, the impact on contractors' willingness to participate in the procurement process with kind of this outside entity that has all this power are really significant. I'm very concerned about it. The board itself says it has no interest in performing any of these acts, that it doesn't wish to utilize the authority that it's seeking, and that they're just seeking transparency. So we are trying to understand why then they're asking for this power if what they really just need is transparency, because we are pretty darn transparent, and we can be more transparent if there's something people want. So we're continuing to talk to legislators, to talk to the governor's office. I've tried to engage a bit with the board itself. The new director is brand new. He's very capable, very competent person. He's got a lot on his plate, and I keep saying, well, why don't you get yourself organized and come back in a couple of years? Like, deal with what you've got right now before you go expand. I don't know if that'll be a successful strategy or not. And sorry, Commissioner, because that leaves traditional state agencies still on the hook. But I think we're just trying to really understand what are the concerns, and then to say you can address these concerns in a way that is not quite so overreaching. We may be coming around to ask you all to help us talk to legislators if we feel that our efforts are not being heard.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea?
Thanks. And just as a follow-up into that point, which is exactly what I was going to say, to the extent that we can be helpful, please let us know. And then I guess the follow-up question is, my hunch is that this is more about a different quasi than it is about this particular quasi. And so to that point, are we also trying to huddle up with the other, I'll use the word innocent quasis for lack of a better word, who are not the target, to have them sort of, so that there's power in numbers type of thing?
Yes, we are continuing to engage with the other quasi-public agencies. This bill has been proposed and has died in previous years. So we're trying not to call, call in the cavalry yet if it will also die on the vine, but I'm concerned. It seems to, the fact that it came back again after compromises were made last year and the board did get authority over the contracting processes of a particular quasi that's in the paper a lot, just makes me worried.
Do you have any talking points on this bill that you could share with us?
Absolutely.
Just to prepare for the possibility that we may need to engage with whether legislators or business people?
Absolutely. We can share that with you. Maybe after the board meeting, Maddie, we can share my testimony in the 2-pager.
Yes.
And you know, we try not to ask too much of you as board members, but certainly to the extent that you're legislatively appointed, you have relationships that we may ask you to help us, you know, engage with your appointing authorities. So we can absolutely share the talking points and the concerns. I understand the point and purpose of the Contracting Standards Board, but where my structural concern is that they have a perspective and a mission that has absolutely nothing to do with our mission. And they have no responsibility to take into consideration our ability to effectively carry out our mission within our budget, which is not an appropriated budget. It's directly from workers. And so I just feel like that disconnect makes it really difficult to give them that sort of overarching power and there's no real controls over their power. So it's just a very weird structure. And so that's the concern.
Is
Okay.
Great. Any other questions for Maddie or for Aaron? Great. Well, thank you so much for the legislative presentation. And Maddie, again, welcome aboard to the team. Really excited to work with you. I know the board echoes those thoughts as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Moving on, Jessica, can you please provide the update on outreach and engagement activities?
Yes. Let me share again. All right.
You can see your screen, Jess.
Thank you very much. Going to start with an update on our program metrics. This is as of April 10th. In terms of registrations, we are currently at 142,489 active registrations. The IT and finance team have been working diligently on cleaning up our data. So if this number appears a bit lower than it has in previous months, that's just a result of their efforts to make sure that we don't have registrations that shouldn't be in there, like municipalities or boards of education, et cetera. Those are registrations represent about 1.6 million employees who are covered by the Connecticut paid leave program. And that estimate is using Q4 2022 DOL data, which when we compare to a year before that, it represents a decrease of approximately 5,800 employees covered by the public plan.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, but what we're seeing is the YouTube page, not the slides.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem. I just know that you have slides.
Thank you. Hang on, let me okay, let me stop. I do have the YouTube page up for a reason. So I was just trying to be proactive and make sure that I had it ready. All right, let's try this again. Can you see the slide now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Oh, goodness. Okay. So in terms of our customer support numbers and updates for our Contact Us center with United Way, we currently have just over 230 open Contact Us cases. There were just shy of 1,200 new cases created last month and just over 1,200 cases closed last month. And that brings our total since the inception of the partnership with the Contact Us Center to over 53,000 closed cases to date. As you've heard me mention before, we do have a standing survey that is sent out to folks who engage with the Contact Us Center, and we review those results every month. And they're overwhelmingly positive with great feedback for the Contact Us United Way team about their helpfulness and responsiveness and how quickly they get back to folks. So we continue to really appreciate that partnership with them. In our internal benefits team contact support center, we have 26 cases currently open. There were 174 new cases created last month, 181 closed, and that brings their total to just over 3,400 cases closed to date. On the private plan front, we have 676 private plans in effect. Of those, 617 are fully insured and 59 are self-insured. We had 6 plans that expired at the end of last year, and these private plans cover just about 49,000 employees. Again, that is an estimate using the Q4 2022 DOL data, and it represents an increase of just about 400 employees from 2021. A quick overview of some of our web and social media analytics. On our Google AdWords campaign, this represents data from Q1, so January, February, March of this year. 961,000 impressions delivered, which generated 85,000 clicks. We had just about 260,000 website users with 552,000 sessions and over 2 million page views. On the social media side, Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, we delivered almost 1.2 million impressions, and that generated over 14,000 clicks. TikTok was 1.43 million impressions and just about 2,000 clicks. And YouTube, we had 248,000 video views with a total of 161,000 minutes watched. So we continue to really be out there in the digital world, delivering a lot of impressions and generating traffic to our website. So we have done some video testimonials of recipients who use the Connecticut Paid Leave Program. And what we have done most recently is repurpose some of that content into a video showcasing a couple of the different individuals and families. That is running on YouTube, Meta, and TikTok right now. So this is what I had the YouTube page up to be able to show you. Let's see if I can get it to open up and play. All right, there's going to be a lot of switching back and forth this morning. Thank you for bearing with me. Can you see the YouTube screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
The mosquitoes are just all over the quiet, please. Okay. Wow.
Hey. Our experience with Connecticut Paid Leave was great. This program was life-changing for me and my family because it offered us the opportunity to have both of us home with our children.
I didn't want to have to worry about finances while also fighting this terrible disease. They just said, fight your fight and don't worry about everything that needs to happen.
And if he had a question, he called in, they answered the question for him. He felt like it was necessary for him to bond with his child. The program allowed him to show that as a partner.
All right, so let me go back now to my deck. All right, so that is what we're currently doing with our testimonial videos. In addition, in order to have consistency with all the different media we're using, we've also done a refresh with our outdoors, so our billboards. And we have photos featuring these individuals who you just saw in the video, with really just a focus on that paid leave is there for all of life's important moments, and that it's important to focus on your health and not have to worry about your paycheck. So in Q1, these boards, because they're digital, were shown over 560,000 times. And the estimate from Lamar, the billboard company, is that that generated over 15 million impressions, which they calculate based on the amount of traffic on the particular highways on average when these boards are shown. Also just wanted to give a quick update on our fund recovery efforts. As you know, the finance team has been working hard and doing direct outreach, and then we also have been running a media campaign targeting not only employers, but also employees, advising them to check their paychecks, and TPAs advising them to just make sure that their accounts are compliant, and also giving them a resource. We've developed a landing page where they can send their clients so that they can generate or communicate that message without having to necessarily be sort of the middleman. They can get them right to our page where they can get all the facts about this process. We also have been doing a geofencing campaign around some of the non-compliant employers as identified by comparing the Department of Labor registration list to our registration list. So that has generated over 471,000 impressions and 435 clicks. I'm not really focused on the number of clicks because it really is almost like a mobile billboard, right? The point is that these individuals see this message over and over again, so that when they do receive a letter from us, or when they do see one of our videos, etc., it's top of mind. An update on our website redesign and replatform. We have made a lot of progress in terms of our design. So we have worked through many of the different pages and how we would like those to look. These are just a few examples of how some of those pages will look. The one on the left is our homepage, excuse me, not our homepage. One of our main level pages about how CT paid leave works. We also will have a page specifically about the differences between paid leave and FMLA, which we're really excited about because we know that there are a lot of questions around that topic. And then there's an example of the ways of starting or expanding your family as one of the qualifying reasons pages. So we continue to work really hard on this process, but we're very excited with the progress that's been made, and can't wait to show you the end result. We need a little more time, but can't wait to show you the end result when it's ready. In terms of news coverage over the first quarter, we had some good coverage at the beginning of the year when we released, did a press release about the first full year of benefits and how much we paid out, how many individuals we were able to approve. And then Erin also had a sit down with Connecticut News Junkie, and they did a nice piece on her, profile piece on her and her commitment to continuing the mission of the Paid Leave Authority. In terms of events, we have been and will continue to be pretty busy for the foreseeable future. We did 15 webinars, I'll call them authority-sponsored webinars from January through March. In addition, we also did a webinar for the WBDC focused on sole proprietors and for the Connecticut Council of Municipalities, so that we could let those town and municipal leaders know more about the program to share that information with their constituents. We had a webinar with Benacare. We also, in addition to what you heard Maddie mention, the Facebook Live with Senator Marks, Erin also did, excuse me, a Facebook Live with Senator Anwar in February. Erin just last week did a presentation for the Small Business Development Center. And myself and Nancy Barrow went up to the Hartford Armory, where we presented to the Joint Resiliency Director of the Connecticut National Guard, which was a great meeting. We will be at the YWCA in the Company of Women luncheon as with a tabling opportunity. And we also will be presenting to some social workers from Veterans Affairs. We'll be at the SBDC CBIA Small Business Award and Resource Fair coming up in May, and we will also be at the Connecticut Association for Healthcare at Home Annual Hospice and Palliative Care Summit. So we'll be very busy. We'll be out there talking to a lot of different groups and individuals. which we love. We love to be out there and talking to people face to face. In terms of the podcast, Nancy, as always, is very busy. She put out 6 new episodes in the first quarter. In January, she focused on the push for a national paid leave policy. And then she also interviewed Planned Parenthood and talked about the many different services that they provide. In February, Erin was on the podcast and did a very detailed explanation and discussion of paid leave and FMLA. And also in February, Nancy did a podcast on mental health in children. And in March, she did one on women's heart health and another on long haul COVID. So she's doing 2 a month and continues to have really great guests and makes really wonderful connections that allow us to further our reach and develop more advocates, frankly, who can help us get the word out. And with that, I will stop sharing. Thank you for your patience as I switch back and forth between multiple screens, but pleased to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Great update. Thank you so much, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica? You've all certainly been very busy, which is wonderful. Andrea?
Thank you. Absolutely, Jessica. I think this is all so great and exciting to see. I love the mission moment. I think it's awesome. You mentioned the geofencing campaign for the non-compliance, and this is completely anecdotal, but I've heard from folks who have gone to their employers seeking to get benefits and have been told that the employer isn't participating, so therefore they're not eligible. And so I'm wondering if there's been a shift in compliance as a result of this campaign that you have been able to record.
So that's interesting. I'm not sure I can speak to a shift in compliance in terms of like employers saying that they are participating or not participating, because that's obviously there's a disconnect there, right? Like they have to be participating unless they're excluded. So that geofencing, that messaging really has been focused on contributions and folks who are non-compliant. And we have seen a significant increase. I just checked with Walter on our finance team this morning to get some updated numbers. So we have seen about $300,000 in contributions come in from employers who we previously had no record of at all. So I'll say we have seen a shift in terms of the geofencing working in that manner, but I appreciate you bringing up that point because it does make me think that perhaps we need a little bit of a more, a stronger educational campaign around the fact to employees that your employer should be participating if they meet these particular criteria.
Just to add to that, we have had individuals who have applied for benefits and whose employers have not contributed. And the way we handle that is to apply the regular eligibility standards. It doesn't matter if the contributions have been made. The employees don't get harmed. So if they work for a covered employer, so basically not a school or governmental entity, then we'll go ahead and just run traditional eligibility and make sure that they're addressed properly. And then separately, we deal with the non-compliant employer. So employees should not be harmed simply because their employers aren't compliant.
And I'll just add to that. We have had at least one example where an employer found out they weren't compliant, and they were compliant in about a week or so. It was quite interesting. They really want to make sure that their employees were covered, and they made whole all the contributions they owed about a week or two later. So, and that's just one example. So to your question and point, Andrea, yes, it certainly helps us and the employers realize what they need to be compliant with.
Thank you all.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thanks again for the report, Jessica. I really appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item number 8, we're going to go to committee reports, policy and personnel. Mike.
Hey, good morning. Our committee met this week and discussed the 2 topics that Michael told us about this morning: comments on the consolidated policies and the staff's work in connection with the private plan audits. And that's our report.
Thank you, Mike. Sorry, any questions for Mike or the Policy and Personnel Committee? Okay. Moving on to outreach and engagement, Molly.
Thank you. So we met over the course of the last month. And the benefit of this being the month where we're up for the longer updates is I think Jessica basically already covered everything that we talked about with Jessica and Maddie. So I think we are good unless there are any questions.
Great. Seeing none, thanks, Molly. Finance and audit, Dave.
Yes, good morning. So in addition to going over the monthly financials, in this case for February, which I'll go over in a minute, we also reviewed an initial draft of the budget for fiscal year 2024. The Finance Committee has about a month to review it. And so at the next Finance Committee meeting at the end of this month, they will offer up any questions, suggestions, or recommendations. At that point, we'll finalize the draft of the budget and present it to the board at the next board meeting at the beginning of May. Like I said, in addition to that, we did review the latest financials, which I will go over with you now. Just bear with me for a second as I share my screen. Okay.
You can see your screen, Dave.
Thank you as always for the verification, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Okay, so for the month of February, the operating expenses were $753,000. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. Typical expenses, including salaries, pension and benefits, contact center, license fees, and outreach that Jessica had talked about previously. We were ahead of budget for the month by $431,000. Year to date, we are also ahead of budget by over $4.7 million. In terms of bond funds, we spent $122,000 in bond funds on several of the initiatives, again, that Jessica had talked about before. We've spent over $1 million so far fiscal year to date. We are ahead of that budget by over $3.7 million, but we do expect that variance to decrease over time as the spending continues. We had budgeted to happen earlier in the fiscal year. It hasn't happened at that pace, but it is still happening. So there'll be more spending as the fiscal year continues. To date, we've spent $12.2 million of bond money compared to the $16 million that was allocated. So we have just under $3.8 million remaining of that bond money to spend. Moving on to the contribution budget. Our net activity for the month was a negative $22.5 million compared to what we had budgeted of 37.8. We were ahead by $15.3 million. The biggest driver of that positive variance continues to be the benefits that were paid. We paid out $23.1 million. That's slightly higher than what we've paid in other months. That's about $5.8 million weekly. We are seeing a slight uptick on that. Contributions for the period were $833,000. Less than budget by $821,000, but that was more than made up by the investment income we earned as we're in a rising rate environment, and we're seeing rates higher than what we budgeted. Those trends also hold true for fiscal year to date. We have a positive activity of $94.7 million compared to a budget of just under $7 million. We're ahead of the game by over $101 million. And again, the biggest driver of that are the benefits paid. Okay, we're in business. All right. We were talking about the balance sheet over to note that we are starting to earn interest on our impressed account of $12 million, or actually I should say that's technically true. We started earning interest in that during the month of March. So this is through February, but going forward for the financials, there will be for the month of March, just want to give you a preview of what's going on there. $965,000 of operating expenses, a little higher than usual. That's because we paid 2 months of contact center expenses in the month. Everything else is typical. Benefits paid were $30.6 million. Again, we paid an extra week out of benefits to AFLAC. That's just how the calendar works. The $1.5 million of the administrative fee that we paid in March is somewhat lower than what we usually do. That's because it includes the credit that we discussed at the prior board meeting. And so that was applied against our monthly fee. Contributions coming in were $647,000. Interest was $1.8 million. Okay, so what does that all mean for the end of the fiscal year? We believe we'll be ahead of budget for our operations by the end of the fiscal year by over $3 million. We think we'll have net activity of $6 million compared to the $3 million we budgeted. And for our contribution activity, we estimate that the net activity will be $74.7 million, and that'll be over $129 million ahead of what we budgeted. Again, the largest driver being the benefit claims that were paid was lower than what we budgeted about a year ago. That's where we are right now. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Dave? Great, seeing none. Thank you so much, Dave. Really appreciate the comprehensive report as always. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, Erin, would you please provide your CEO report?
Thank you so much. So as you can tell from everybody's reports, we've been very busy and continue to work hard to make sure that contributions are coming in, the claims are getting paid. Next month, you will get a claims update that will share information about the claims and in particular about the service levels, which I will give you a preview of, which is that the service levels are really good. The numbers are very good in terms of turnaround time for approving claims, turnaround time for responding to phone calls and messaging. So that's next month. We have been engaged in an experiment these past few months. In the past, we had finance, outreach, and claims do updates every month. And then as you recall, we proposed this experiment of devoting more time for each, but having claims be February, finance be March, and April be outreach. If you like that experiment where we have more time, but one topic per month, we can continue it. If you like the old way better, just let me know. We would just want to explore and make sure that these meetings are as productive as possible for you. 2 quick reminders. Statements of financial interest are due on May 1st with the Office of State Ethics. You have all done them before, I think. So it's just going online, filling out the information, updating what you've done in the past. So just remember that May 1st deadline to complete your statements of financial interest as board members. It's a statutory requirement. And then another quick reminder, as we work to update our content for the website, we do want to make sure that we have updated photographs and bios for each of our board members. So if you would like to submit an updated photograph to us, please do so. If you want to update your bios, please do so. Some of you have already done that. We really appreciate it. Molly wins the prize for being the first one. She was very quick. So just, it's been 3 years. So if you've given us stuff that's changed, we'd like to update it. And then finally, on the 3-year note, it's actually technically been 4 years since the original appointments were made in the summer of 2019. We think you're all great, and we would love to continue working with you, and we'll be happy to say that to your appointing authorities. If anyone has any concerns about that, please let me know separately. Maddie and I will be reaching out to the appointing authorities sort of now while they're in a bit of a lull moving forward, because they will need to issue their new appointments in July. So if anyone has any concerns or questions, I'm speaking specifically to the folks who are appointed by legislators, please let us know, and then we can address that accordingly. And that's it for me, unless anyone has any questions. Okay.
Thank you so much, Erin. I appreciate your report as always, and again, the work of your team. Thanks so much. So next, moving on to item number 10, do we have any old business? Okay, seeing none. Number 11, do we have any new business? Okay, and then with that, I think we can move to item number 12. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 9:56 a.m. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.